so very easy. My name is Laura. And putting a quilt together in an old-fashioned template method has a lot of advantages. You cut the pieces out one at a time so that they are very precise, and you have little markings on them that make everything go together really easy. However, just because it is a traditional method doesn't mean the quilt will look traditional. This is a free quilt from Banyan Batiks, and it is a very traditional, non-traditional quilt. It is traditional in the sense that it's put together with squares, and those squares are put together in rows. And the traditional part is it's going to use template pieces. But when put together, it has this modern looking quilt. And this can go together in many different variations. Each block is the same. It depends on how you turn them to make the quilt. When you use templates, it can save on a lot of fabric. So you don't need to trim a block down. What you're doing is you're making the block exactly the right size. So there's no making it and then trimming it down. Each piece will fit together like a puzzle. When you print out your template pages, you need to print them out at 100%. So you can go into your settings on your computer and make sure the settings say 100%. If you print it to fit to page, it's not going to be correct. On each page you have a little line, and that line needs to be 2 inches. Here's an example of 2 pages. This page was printed at fit to page. When I check that, I'm off by 1/8 of an inch. When I've printed it at 100%, when I measure that 2 inch, it comes exactly to that 2 inch mark. I'm going to be using the top color variation, but there are lots of different colors that you can do this with. And the fun part is you only need 4 fabrics. The fabrics I'm going to use are the same as the pattern, and it's called Broken Glass. But the colors are just beautiful, and it's going to be so much fun to work with these. A lot of these pieces are going to be put on the bias, so it's really important if you make sure your fabric is well pressed and well starched. The starching is just going to stabilize that fabric as you're working on it. There are many different ways you can make template pieces. You can print this right out on heavy cardstock and then cut it out. You can trace this on template plastic, or you can paste it and cut it out. I'm going to use a big piece of Bristol board. I'm going to glue these pieces right on top of this Bristol board. So I'm going to cut out those template pieces very roughly, with lots of room around the outside. When I go to join these 2 pieces together, I can leave one with a big outside border, but I will need 1 joining line cut right on that line. That will just make it a lot easier for me to match up. The first thing I'm going to do is glue on one of the pieces onto my Bristol board. And you can use any method you want to glue this paper onto your cardboard. And just smooth it down with my hands to make sure that it stays nice and flat. I have no folds and no bubbles in it. The next piece is going to be glued right over top. I want to match up that seam and then just press this other piece of paper out. The glue is just going to stick it down. Now I have all of the pieces stuck right on top of this Bristol board. Now I can take a paper pair of scissors and cut out all of my shapes. You can even use a spare rotary cutter if you have a blade that you can use with the cardboard. Once all of those edges have been trimmed off, you will notice some dots. Those are going to be registration marks. We need to poke a hole into our template material. And that hole is going to need to be big enough so that I can put a pencil and mark it. Before I start to cut out my fabric, I'm going to label my template pieces. They're already labeled with the piece number, but I want to label them with the fabric that I'm going to use. This will keep me in order as I go to cut them. For template 1, I'm going to be using fabric A, and I need a 5-inch piece cut the width of the fabric. Then open it up so you're only working on one layer, and you're working on the wrong side, so the wrong side is going to face up. We will be tracing a cutting line, so use a line that you can be able to see very clearly. You're also going to need to mark the little holes. I'm going to use that edge of the fabric that's already been cut along the edge of that template and trace all the way around the template. From here, the template needs to be turned. It's not turned upside down, it's turned sideways. I'm going to use this line that I just drew to my advantage and place one of my edges along it. Just butt up against each other. Trace the piece and mark the dots. From there, I'm going to just turn that again and move it up into the next area. So what we're going to be doing is tracing all the way along that 5-inch strip. Each template piece is going to need to be cut 24 times. I'm going to start with a line that I can go from one edge to the other. From here, I'll find the next line that I can cut from corner to corner without going through another piece. Separate them and cut whatever you can with a ruler and a rotary cutter. From here, I'm going to be able to cut each piece throughout that whole strip. Another thing that you can mark on your templates is the size of strips to cut. So I'm going to be able to take those cutting directions and transfer the information right onto these template pieces. So for each template piece, I'm going to need 24 pieces of fabric. And the pieces are going to go in order. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the corner. They don't quite look right in this direction, but we're looking at the back side. Let's turn them over to the right side. 3 and 4. 5 is the corner piece. And then 6 is that main corner. So this is how the right side of the block is going to look. We're going to sew 1 and 2 together first, so we can move the rest of these out of the way. And I've left them with the template right in the back so that if I ever need it for a reference, I can easily get it. And that edge is the edge that's going to match up. When I pick up the 2 top pieces, you're going to notice that you have those dots, and we put them on both pieces. So when we go to put them together, the 2 dots are going to match up. Those 2 dots on the top are going to match the 2 dots at the bottom. The dots are going to help keep us aligned. They're also going to give us a starting and a stopping point. We want to start in that dot and stitch a 1/4 inch all the way down and stopping in that dot. We're going to press the seams to number 2. I like to press it with my finger, and that way I don't stretch it out of shape. My 1 is in the top, my 2, so next my 3 is going to go on. So I'm going to be able to take and match up those 2 seams that I'm going to be able to match up and stitch from the dot to the dot. To match up those dots, you can put the pin through the 1 fabric and then match it up to the dot on the back and then slide those seams together. You still have that edge that's going to match up. We're going to be able to do the same for each corner. I'm going to be able to stitch from the 1 dot right to the next dot. When that 1/4 inch has been stitched, press that over. You can already see where that square is starting to take shape. The next we'll be adding that 4 on. Same thing, have those right sides matching, have the dots matching, and stitch a 1/4 inch. When number 4 has been put on, we're going to do the same thing with number 5. When the 5 have been put on the one side, we're going to be able to add that corner on. The 2 dots on each side will match the last 2 dots on piece 1 and piece 5. Match up the right sides and the dots, stitch that 1/4 inch. And that last seam gets pressed out to number 6. Once all the pieces have been put on, you will find that this equals a 12.5-inch square, and there'll be no trimming required. The quilt is going to be put together with 4 per row and 6 rows. And there's a great diagram on how to put those rows together. However, we can switch them up. This is how the original layout would go, but we could take it so that all of the last piece put on can all go together. This definitely changes it up because you have these very large pinwheels, but the secondary ends up being another very large pinwheel. You can also set them out so that all the blocks are going in the same direction. You really notice this fan shape out. If we turn them so every other one is the same, you end up with this piece that is flashing through the quilt. I'm going to sew them together as the original pattern. So they're going to be 4 in each row with 6 rows. The quilt is done once all the rows are put together. Without the addition of an extra border, it keeps it very modern looking. So even though the quilt was put together in a traditional way using templates, the template shapes themselves were not traditional. So the quilt does not have a very traditional feel to it. It has a modern, clean look to it. By not having a border on it, it also aids to having that more of a modern look. The advantage, however, with templates is the pieces go together just like a puzzle, so we do not have to trim and square up as we go along. All the work is done with the templates. I'll put a link in the description to the free pattern. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.